Okay, so now Anand gobbles up the free pawn on e4 with knight takes e4. And guys, we are entering the open Ruy Lopez. And now Kasparov strikes back in the center with d4, opening up the lines for his pieces. And here Anand counters with b5, kicking the bishop away from that active diagonal. Kasparov drops the bishop back to b3, keeping a deadly eye on that f7 square. And after that, d5. And just look at this beautiful center control by black. His pieces are perfectly placed. And after that, some takes happens. Bishop to e6. Here Anand solidifies that powerful d5 pawn, which was previously targeted by the bishop and the queen. Okay, so and after that, here Kasparov develops his another knight on d2, attacking the knight on e4, but knight to c5, putting immense pressure on that bishop on b3, c3. And here Kasparov just opens a safe square so that he can retreat his bishop on c2. And now let's suppose if Anand decides to take the bishop with knight takes b3, after that knight takes b3. And in the next move, you can see white can consider bishop to e3 with the idea of placing this knight to this c5 square. And as you can see, which will be a very active square, and by this white will be perfectly doing fine without any getting into any real danger. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move c3, so here Anand strikes in the center with d4, asking for bishop exchange. But guys, in this position here Kasparov finds a beautiful move. Can you guess the move? Just pause the video and try to find it by yourself. And guys, in this position he goes for knight to g5. He just sacrifices the knight, and the idea is if queen takes g5, queen to f3, a double attack on the c6 knight and the f7 pawn. And obviously bishop to d7 is not possible because, as I said, white queen is also eyeing on f7. And let's say if bishop to d7, bishop takes f7 check, king to d8, and after that he can capture the pawn. And now since this knight is attacked, as well as you can see white is taking benefit of this pinned this pinned knight. So that's why this knight has to move, and after that bishop to d5, creating some immense pressure on the knights. And if let's say he tries to bring his queen to g6 so that he can guard this knight, knight to b3, opening up the diagonal for his light square bishop. And also in the next move you can see this is coming, these multiple threats are coming, and then you can see this rook can also come to e1 with the idea of pushing this pawn to e6. And you can see white is creating some deadly attacks. And guys, obviously Anand is not going to fall for this trap, so that's why after knight to g5 he ignores the knight and captures the pawn on c3. And so after that knight takes e6, Kasparov just captures on e6, f takes e6, and by all of this exchange you can see now Anand king is slightly in a vulnerable position. Okay, so now b takes c3, here it's better for black to just capture this active bishop, but instead Anand goes for queen to d3, and basically he wants to attack the pawn on c3. But the problem with that move is it allows Kasparov to grab the initiative. I mean, first of all he attacks the queen with bishop to c2, and after queen takes c3, knight to b3, guarding the rook on a1. But guys, now comes knight takes b3. He just removes the defender of the rook, creating a double attack on the rook. And guys, from this point this game is going to be interesting. I mean, since black is creating a double attack on the rook, so let's say what if white decides to defend this rook by sliding it on b1, which is the only square. But guys, in reality that will be a big mistake, because first of all black is going to defend his knight with knight to d4, which also creates some immense pressure on the bishop. And if now white tries to give a check from, let's say, h5 square with queen to h5, g6, and if bishop takes g6, taking benefit of this pinned pawn. And what is the best move for black in this position? It is to however takes on g6, allowing the move queen takes h8 and then castling queenside, getting the king to safety. And guys, just look at the black pieces. I mean, now white has two knights, a bishop and the queen, all of which are very active and getting ready to shatter the white king. But whereas look at the white pieces, I mean, both rooks are not in a good square. And yes, white has an active queen, but let's say if this game continues with bishop to b2 attacking the queen, but knight to e2 check, king to h1, and after that queen to c4. And in the later moves, you can see bishop to c5 is coming and then rook to d2. I mean, just look at the arrows. There are numerous threats which black is creating. Okay, so in the actual game, after analyzing all of this position, so after this move, here Kasparov decides to give up his rook and instead he goes for bishop takes b3. And guys, now if black captured this rook on a1 with, let's say, queen takes a1, that will be a mistake because of queen to h5 check. The only move is g6, and after that queen to f3, attacking the knight on c6. So to defend this, if king to d7, rook to d1 check, and in the next move black has to lose his knight because knight to d4 is not possible because of the threat of queen takes a8. So that's why after bishop takes b3, okay, so let me go back. So in this position here, Anand goes for knight to d4. He brings the queen, so he brings the knight further in, avoiding any threats which is mainly due to this knight. And now he is ready to grab this rook on a1. But in this position, Kasparov finds another crazy move. He again leaves this rook and he goes for queen to g4, adding more fuel to the fire. And basically he's now targeting the king's side. Okay, so now Anand just grabs the rook on a1, and after that Kasparov chops the pawn on e6. And guys, here note one thing, that Anand cannot capture this bishop on e6 with knight takes e6, because now comes queen takes e6 check, bishop to e7, and after that bishop to g5, threatening mate on e7. So that's why after bishop takes e6, here Anand slides his rook to d8 so that he can defend his knight as well as bring his rook into the game. But guys, in this position, Kasparov goes for another great move. He goes for bishop to h6 with the idea after g takes h6 so that he can give a check from this square, king to e7, and then queen to f7, and that's a mate. That's absolutely beautiful. So that's why after bishop to h6, here Anand considered the move queen to c3, and basically he's trying to bring the queen back to defend. But bishop takes g7, and as you can see, this deadly check is coming. So queen to d3 by Anand, preparing queen to g6 so that he can get on g6 to defend the position. But Kasparov calmly takes the rook on h8, queen to g6. Here he basically wants to simplify the position, and after that bishop to f6, attacking this rook, bishop to e7, and he's now challenging this powerful bishop. But Kasparov just simplifies the position. Bishop takes g4, Anand exchanges the queen, and now you can see we are in an end game. And first of all, Kasparov brings his rook to c1. He is now attacking the pawn, so that's why c6, but f4, solidifying this structure. And look at this, he's also preparing to march his king into the center. And now Anand pushes a5, trying to create some counterplay. King to f2, Kasparov just brings his king into the game. a4, king to a3, and after that b4. Okay, so bishop to d1, a3, g4, and now here Vishy can consider the move h5 so that he can deflect this pawn and create this double pawn structure. But instead he goes for rook to d5, and basically his idea is to push c5. But the problem is rook to c4, which is played by Kasparov, and now he is targeting the knight and the pawn at the same time. So Anand defends it with c5, but this weakens his overall pawn structure. And Kasparov takes advantage of this and he plays And guys, in this position, the final move by Kasparov is Rook to d6, and here Vishy Anand resigned. This is because, let's suppose if this game continues like And guys, what a game between these two legend players. Like this video and I will see you in the next one. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.